Over the last couple of days, we've been discussing self talk, the inner monologue, conversation that we have with ourselves, the story that we tell ourselves and about others and the world and the nature of it all. Um, it can be supportive, sometimes it's not so supportive. And in this session, in this on this particular day of 30 days of mental skills, we're on day 16. I want to talk to you about challenging that negative self talk, the inner monologue that can destroy all our efforts, all our best intentions for success or good relationships or whatever happens to be. Uh, I oftentimes experience this with clients when they come and they sit in front of me and we talk about the challenges that exist for them in their work and in their business or in their sport. I've worked with uh, semi-professional athletes, professional athletes, soccer players, Gaelic footballers, uh, jockeys, stage performers, business people, entrepreneurs, people who have spent some time on the inside, the wrong sides of the gates, if you might say, if you want to say. Those who are trying to rehabilitate themselves, get back into everyday society, and form some kind of of successful living for themselves, correct their problems as they perceive them. And one of the biggest issues that those people face is the inner conversation, how we talk to ourselves when we experience things that we do want to experience and things we don't. And so it's easy when things are going well, when you're earning a few bob, your relationship is going well, work is going well. It's easy to speak to ourselves in a supportive way, a kind way. Although even with that, we might find ourselves in conversation that doesn't help. For example, it's great now, but it's not going to last forever, and I'm only waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's almost like we expect things to turn to shit, but it doesn't have to. Um, maybe that's a conversation for another day. But I want to deal with the negative conversation, the negative talk that persists in our minds, perhaps when things aren't going our way, when the results that we experience in our work and in our jobs and in our sport isn't what we want. So you're losing the game. You're behind by 5 or 6 points. You're in work and the presentation isn't going well, or maybe the last few haven't gone well for you. And so you're engaged in this kind of negative monologue around what's going to happen now. It's almost like you're predicting the future. You're telling yourself this is going to be more of the same. Um, and so it's an important skill to develop, challenging those negative thoughts. And because as I say to clients, it doesn't have to be true, when we engage in this catastrophizing, or when we try to predict the future, whether it's 10 seconds or 10 minutes or 10 days time. It doesn't have to be that way because the future hasn't happened yet. And this is a really important consideration. Tomorrow never comes. And so if we insist that tomorrow will be like today or like yesterday, well, then we're in for more of the same, unless we can find some way to entertain uh, another possibility, an alternative possibility that's equally true. Um, and so, in those high stakes environments, in situations where it's important to find the positive, to go mining for the positive and look for it, um, this skill kicks in. Oftentimes, we'll find that when we're really engrossed in something, when you're doing something you love, when you're immersed in your work, there is no thought. Or maybe when you're working out in the gym and you're really pushing hard, there's very little room for thought because all your physiological capacities and your mental state is caught up in the challenge of doing whatever it is you're doing. And we'll talk about flow state. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, the Hungarian researcher who developed this idea. We'll talk about him later on uh, in the series. Um, so in those situations where we're completely engrossed, self-talk doesn't seem to exist. It's only when the pressure's off and it ceases, or there's a break in the play, that the inner critic, the inner monologue begins to kick off. It's an automatic reaction to stressful events. Um, Stressful events to which we have had previous experience, perhaps, and that previous experience is telling us this is how it's going to occur or reoccur. And we might develop this expectation for circumstances, for life in our childhood, our family situation, our lives when we were growing up. They develop a template. We develop a template for ourselves and an expectation for ourselves and others. But we're not stuck with that. We don't have to be. And research shows that there are ways to overcome these patterns of thought, self-defeating conversations. I've mentioned a couple of these research papers in the article today, down below. If you're on YouTube, you click on the link below, it'll take you to the essay. Substack, it's down below. Medium, it's down below. You'll get the links and you'll get the references to the papers. And so the steps involved in this cognitive reframing, this addressing, recognizing that this is how we're thinking and shifting our thoughts towards something more positive. There are particular steps in this. So the first thing that we must do is to become aware that there is something going on, that there is this tick, 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 and that maybe it's not us. Maybe if I had a choice, this is a conversation that I'd like you to have with yourself. If I had the choice, I'm not sure I'd think this way. If I had the choice, I'm not sure I would choose these thoughts that seem to occur. And so when we take that perspective, there's an opportunity to stand back and see the thoughts as something else, to separate ourselves from it. Remember, we were talking about this yesterday on day 15. It's kind of the same principle. So becoming aware of your thinking, not to simply just accept it as true, is the first port of call. The second thing that we must do is to evaluate it. So I like to ask clients, for example, to say, hang on a second, is this necessarily true? Does this have to be true? What is a possible alternative, equally believable? And that's a really key aspect of this reframing, cognitive reframing. Does this have to be true? What might be an equally plausible reason or explanation for this situation? And we begin to challenge and look for alternatives. This is, in very simple terms, this is how we overcome. And it takes practice. It doesn't simply happen. You can't simply decide that this is untrue. And where people fall down in this practice is they try to convince themselves of things they don't believe. You must believe the alternative. There must even be just a crumb, a fragment of belief in you that the alternative thought might be true. And at least that's a way out. That's an escape route. And if you don't give yourself a maybe, if you don't give yourself a yet, if you don't give yourself a what if, well, then you've no chance. You're stuck. And so you must find it. To entertain a hypothetical scenario, to entertain an alternative possibility for tomorrow, 10 minutes time, 10 seconds time. And when you're in the real heat, white hot heat of a moment, let's say in a sports game, field game, and you've only got a few minutes left in the game, you and your teammates and your coaches, how you choose to think about the situation, it might seem dire. How you choose to think about it to yourself and whether or not you're entertaining alternative possibilities will dictate your actions. And after all, your actions are most important. It's what you do now that counts. It's not what you did 10 seconds ago or yesterday or last year. It's what you do now. And we'll talk about this idea of time and the concept of time and the human being, the organism in time, and whether or not time is a fundamental aspect of reality. This is a really important key element in developing psychological skills, mental skills. We'll talk about time later on. But in order to be effective, in order to choose appropriate thinking that will help you take action, you must entertain the hypothetical and you must take action now. So becoming aware of your thoughts, number one, evaluating the content, number two, and challenging those negative thoughts and somehow finding an equally acceptable alternative. Research by Morin in 2005, I have it linked below, suggests that this recognition of self-talk helps us consider the perspective of others, helps us broaden our interpretation of reality, um, helps us develop our own private speech, and incorporate these perspectives into our own evaluation. Helps us consider our own behaviors and emotional states and realize perhaps that we're not stuck with them, that we can change them. I work with a bunch of 18-year-old kids, males, in sport, Gaelic games. And composure is a key aspect that we talk about all the time, is maintaining that composure and bringing in a game, in a physical game, in a contact sport, bringing the aggression, right, and the intensity, but maintaining composure, and to be able to understand how these concepts are not mutually exclusive. In fact, we're required to merge the two to somehow be aggressive and intentional and full on high arousal state, but yet composed. And composure is really a key, because if you play sport and you're on the clock, composure in the last couple of minutes can be the winning and losing of the game. And I've often played, I'm an old man now when it comes to sport, field sport anyway, and my days are over. But I know straight off the top of my head several people that I would have played with, friends of mine, who lacked that composure and uh, suffered as a result. The team suffered as a result. So if you have players in your squad that have no composure, who just fly off the handle, who believe the first thought that comes into their head, well, then they have work to do, or maybe you have work to do. So composure is key. In the essay below, the brief little essay below, I've given you a tool to help you reframe automatic negative thinking. And there's a step-by-step guide, 5 steps in the process, little bit of a worksheet that you can recreate easily. Remember what I told you, get yourself one of these little diaries and write in it on a daily basis. Begin to notice how you think. Begin to notice the automatic commentary that exists in your mind about you in this particular situation. And using this tool, it can help you reframe these experiences. Follow the instructions below. First, describe the situation to yourself that caused the particular automatic negative thought. Next, note your initial thinking about it. Follow on then with the emotions that were related to this thinking. So anxiety, knot in your stomach, and so on. And then this is the real crucial bit in the process. Ask yourself, as I've said already, is this thought accurate? What is an equally believable alternative explanation for this situation? Or if you're thinking about tomorrow and you've got some negative anticipation about tomorrow, ask yourself, what might be a more favorable outcome here? Imagine it went well. Could it go well? Well, let me see. Well, I don't believe it's going to go well. But hang on, is there a possibility it could go well? Well, okay, it is possible it could go well. Okay, so tell me about that. This is you talking to yourself, right? And write it down and take note of it, because this is what reframing is. It's just thinking again. Think again. If you think you're not good enough, think again. If you think you haven't done the work, think again. If you think that you haven't got the skills, knowledge, or abilities to carry out this task or achieve what you want, think again, right? This is the process. Don't simply accept the first thought that comes into your mind, unless it's a supportive one. Now, it's important to remember here, and I don't want to ask you to simply look at the world through rose-tinted glasses. You must recognize when things are difficult. That's the first step, I suppose. I've mentioned the first step a few times, but it's important in these, when you're considering this, is to recognize the truth. If it's not truthful, if it doesn't feel believable, you're wasting your time. It must be believable. So recognize the facts. This is important. I provided you with an example here in the brief essay below. I ask clients to address themselves when they catch themselves in this negative mode of thinking. I ask them to ask themselves, quote, hang on a second. Does this thought have to be true? What's an equally possible, believable reason why this occurred or why this might occur? And begin to flesh it out. continue the conversation with yourself. And that's really the extent of it. You can't only do it once. You have to continually do it. It takes work. It takes effort. Remember what we were talking about, System 1 and System 2, Daniel Kahneman's thinking systems, right? System 1 is automatic. It's biased. It's not linked to cognition. You don't have to be smart or not smart to think this way, because System 1 thinks by itself. It's like the engine. It's like a flywheel. Once you give it the energy, woof, off it goes, right? So you got this is your automatic negative thinking mind. It can be an aspect of System 1. So you've trained it to think this way. System 2 takes more effort and energy in order to for the thoughts and beliefs and so on to become established. So it takes work. If you want to reverse automatic negative thinking, it takes work, but stick with it. It does bring about more favorable circumstances. And if the only thing it does is calm you down in a stressful situation, well, then that's all you need, because now you're better prepared to take action. You can do what you need to do in a calm state and move forward, whatever the results happen to be. Okay, this is an essential mental skill. I've been talking about mental skills for the last 2 weeks, over 2 weeks. This is day 15, day 16, and we're going for 30 days. I'm talking about the 9 mental skills of peak performance. This isn't only about peak performance. It's not only about achievement and gold medals and money in the bank and all this kind of stuff. It's about living a life that's meaningful, that's fruitful, that's enjoyable, and forming relationships with other people that are lasting. You're not just in it for the win, you're in it for the process. I mentioned that before too. Process over outcome. Okay, tomorrow we're moving on to another subject. Let me share this framework with you again. It's the 9 mental skills of peak performance. That's not the right one, Lara. Hang on a minute. Let's see. Where did I put that? This is it. Okay, we have spoken about mindset. It's right at the middle of the framework. We've spoken about motivation, which is at the top of the framework. We're coming around clockwise. We've spoken about goal setting. We've spoken about people skills. We've been discussing self-talk, thinking skills over the last few days. We're moving on for day 17, 18, and 19. We're going to be talking about visualization, using mental imagery to prepare yourself and your organism for whatever it is you want to do. It's important. Sports people do this all the time. It is an essential mental skill, and if you get this down, if you perfect this skill, perhaps you can get what you want. Right? We'll talk about that for the next couple of days. Okay, thanks for watching. I'm Larry McGuire, humanperformance.ie. See you tomorrow.